The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Our guest today, Sharon Chiemlarz, is the author of Down at Angels, a beautifully illustrated picture book published in 1994 by Ticknor and Fields. In Down at Angels, two small sisters make friends with an elderly Bulgarian woodcutter. The story is set in post-World War II South Dakota. Sharon Chiemlarz will be interviewed by Jane Green.
Sharon, would you read to us from your latest picture book, Down at Angels?
I'd love to. You know, Jane, you were asking me what angel really looked like, the prototype from this book. And I would imagine the artist at least got his body quite well, because a man in bib overalls does have that kind of a bulge, and he did look a great deal like that with the blue shoulders and the blue coveralls. His hat used to be different.
So Angel was a real person in your life?
Angel was a real person in my life. This angel, of course, after you've written something and the editor gets it, and then the artist gets it, there's a new angel. Just like what I write, as long as it's on the page and in the manuscript form, that's my property. But once I start sharing that with an editor or with an artist, then really that becomes a new person. And so the angel in the book is truly, may have come from my angel, but he is a different person. I'm not going to read the whole book, but I'll just read some parts. In retrospect, I had so much trouble finding the beginning to this, the opening line to this book. And then it just, sometimes as you're writing, as you well know, there comes a moment when the writer inside, or the muse, or whoever it is, says, now look, this is how it's going to be. He's your friend. You just introduce the book by saying, my friend Angel lives in his cellar, and that's where you take off. And that's how the book, that opening sentence, began. Before that, I had many, many parts that I did not throw away. I used them in different parts of the book. But that gave me the impetus, just to have that voice inside say, take me by my shoulders and say, just, tell it.
Just say it straight out.
Right.
Nothing fancy.
Right. Okay.
So you
Good.
started in Angel Cellar.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
My friend Angel lives in his cellar. In the dim light from the window, his tabletop shines like his supper, hard-boiled eggs and Spanish onions in a bowl. And I love that, hard-boiled eggs and Spanish onions in a bowl. And the hard-boiled eggs were really right for that was correct. That was historically correct.
You have many details throughout your story that are historically correct.
Yeah. In this picture, I thought the artist might like that part too, but you notice there's not a single egg in that picture.
As soon as I read the first line of the book, that's what came to me, are the Spanish onions and the
Yeah,
eggs.
I thought it might be the kitchen scene or something.
Exactly,
from
yeah.
the basement.
I was surprised too.
There's another thing about this cellar. I was at a school last week talking with the kids, and I pointed out how the children, these two figures, these two girls, are going down the hill. And that is one reason why the book is called Down at Angels.
Oh.
But even if they were going up the hill, I would still call this book Down at Angels, because Angel lives in the cellar.
Down in the cellar. That's where I thought the title came from. This book happened from your childhood, and you lived in South Dakota?
Right.
So this is a real place and a real cellar in South Dakota?
Right. We used to, the original Angel lived maybe 2 blocks from our house, and Well, you can imagine South Dakota in the summertime. This was a very, very small town in South Dakota.
And it also happened in the Depression.
Well, just after the Depression, right. I'm not quite a Depression baby, but boy, did I hear about the Depression all
I think we all heard about the Depression.
Turn off the lights,
Exactly.
you know, this sort of thing. And you better save because the Depression is coming again. But anyway, you can imagine during that time, in a hot summer, dusty, you know, the streets weren't paved or anything in those
In the
very, very small
summertime.
towns. Going to Angel's house and going down into his cellar.
The coolness of it.
Right. And it's not, and the artist in the book portrays the cellar as a door like that. And I certainly have seen a lot of cellar doors. In my mind, the cellar door was a regular a flight of stairs down, but with a regular door. And then you knocked on the door, there was a glass knob and whatever. It was really very magical because as soon as you got into Angel's house, you were out of that heat and out of that blaze and you were into some other country. Your host even had an accent, and there was sawdust all over the floor, and it wasn't anything like your mother's house because your mother used doilies or whatever. And I mean, we were in a man's land. We were in a woodman's land. A woodman in South Dakota. I mean, the woods and South Dakota in Congress. But anyway, we were with angels at Angel's house. You could do things like that. You were in a different world. Well, here's another line that I like from it. And every Saturday, whang goes the buzzsaw down at Angel's. Sawdust showers over his blue cap and shoulders, flies like a sandstorm across the saw table, and lies ankle deep on the floor. To try to give the illusion, that sentence was built to try to give the illusion of the noise in the basement when he was working at a saw, and of the feel of it, of the sawdust and the table work that he did.
So you and your sister went down frequently to Angel's house, where he was woodworking in the basement on these hot summer South Dakota days. Entered a magical kingdom.
Right. Not only I had 3 sisters, and we all went down to Angel's. And in fact, when I first started this book, I tried to get all 4 of us girls into this story.
There are 2 girls in the book.
Right. There are only 2 girls, and I just had to knock off a couple sisters.
Which ones did you knock off?
I don't know, because if you'll notice, these girls don't have any names.
I noticed that.
The mother doesn't have a name except for Ma. The girls don't have names. The only one with names, with a name, is Angel.
The man.
And Angel could represent the change in his life that he went through. You know, when he this points out. Let me read this section where it points out one of the problems that the girls are having, understanding why Angel lives by himself. Where have you been, Ma asks as usual when we come home. Down at Angel's, I say. Ma, why did Angel's wife go away earlier? She's told him that. Everybody in town knows that. I don't. Well, he built that house for her, but he drank too much, Ma says slowly. Does he drink any more? No, she says. Now he spends his drinking money on wood. No, I repeat. I tap dance on the shiny blue floor she's just cleaned. No, no more, 'cause Angel's an angel from Sofia in Bulgaria. He lives in his cellar and has a sad star in one eye. I like that part, but it shows the girls are looking for this, or trying to understand this man, and it also shows that he has been transformed a bit in their mind from this, since they couldn't understand totally this man that they wanted to know totally, then this helps overcome this idea that he has become angelic in their mind, that he has conquered this problem. Now, I didn't think of the drinking and his wife leaving him and all that.
He was a great mystery to them that they demystified.
Right. and that little dance is kind of like, I like to see, in my mind, I like to see that girl dance or tap dance on the waxed floor of her mother's kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't have a name, and I don't think she needs a name, and neither does the little girl. It's almost as if he is the only one who needs a name, and as a matter of fact, his name is not a normal or normal name for South Dakota.
Doesn't sound like a Bulgarian immigrant's name somehow.
But that is what he is in their minds now.
He is an angel.
Right.
In the story, he has a starry eye or a milky eye
Right.
that actually scares a number of the kids, and it doesn't scare those two girls that are your main characters.
Right. Now, one of my sisters was frightened by that eye. I must say that not everything, this is not an autobiographical book.
Oh, it has to be.
No, it isn't quite. Like, I knocked off two of my sisters. My dad, in this book, if one of these girls is me, which of course everybody is in the writer's book, right, to some part, but the father to these girls died during the war.
Mm-hmm. And yours was very much alive, I'm assuming?
Very much alive. And as a matter of fact, I can remember my father saying about Angel's House that it was a fire trap.
And he let you go down there anyway.
Yes, he did. That word, fire trap, I wanted to use that in the manuscript. I tried several times. I mean, I have got more drafts of this story. Nothing comes easily, I don't think.
We have to talk about that, about
Right,
how
okay,
it
good.
came into the origination.
Well, I think it started first then as a poem, right?
Ah, right, correct.
And
Down at Angels.
right.
When did you write the poem, Down at Angels?
The book that poem is written in came out, I believe, in I'm guessing now, 80, 82, something like that. So give it at least 3 years before 82 would make it 79?
Mm-hmm.
And I notice in this book that he died in 1977, the prototype for the book, Angel.
Oh, I see.
Should I read this?
Sure, if you would like to.
I thought this poem never really... What I tried to do is to give people an idea of what this house was like. I mean, it was different. It was truly different type of place.
Because you went down into the cellar, it was this cool place. There was this different man in there, a Bulgarian immigrant, doing a lot of woodworking.
Right.
He had a history that was very much different than yours.
Really, a very, very different person from whom you'd meet daily.
I am curious, how many years did you, as a child, go down to Angel's house with your sisters?
I knew Angel until he died. Until I went to college, I went down regularly to his house.
And when
which
did you
would have been
start going
17,
down?
18 years old.
So he was a big figure in your life.
Yes, he really was. And although he gives gifts in this book, he gave different kinds of gifts. For example,
In this book, he gave you and your sister a beautiful inlaid table which he had made for a Christmas present, and you and your sister had given him a wonderful Christmas present too.
Yes.
A lot of canning that you had done with your mother, you and your
Right.
sister had done with the mother.
Right. And as a
It was
matter
a
of fact,
beautiful exchange of gifts.
when this book came out, my sisters too were wondering which one of these girls they were. And one of
They
my
both
sisters
wanted to claim it.
Yes. One of my sisters said, well, since the older girl is wearing braids, it can't be you because when you were young, you wore your hair bobbed. And then another thing that happened
Did you have to send the illustrator pictures of your sisters or anything?
No, I never had
Okay.
any contact with the illustrator. Then another thing that happened was this is a small town, and they were just delighted that anything about that town had ever come out.
Did they all see themselves in the book?
No, but they all wondered where the table was. Who got the table?
Well, who did get the table?
But
I wonder that
it was
too.
just made up.
You made the table up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I hate to say that.
Did Angel give you anything
Yeah,
in
he
real
did
life?
give presents like money or, well, the candy bars. is
Yeah,
true.
there's all the time the girls are eating chocolate bars. He has a
Yeah.
line in there, do you want garlic or chocolate?
Yes.
And the girls always choose chocolate.
You want a bite of garlic or a bar of chocolate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he did give you those things.
Yeah.
So then, many years later, Angel never left you. You left South Dakota, but
Right.
Angel stayed with you and came up in a poem.
Right. I think the characters in our childhood do that. They never really do leave us. And I'm not sure if I don't think I'm unique in that. I think probably every child today has characters in his or her life, and they make large influences, although you might not know it at the time. And I hope every child can meet a person like Angel, who is truly unique. I mean, it was just not the regular person you might see on television or on the street, but really somebody different. But nevertheless, everybody I think we meet in our childhood with whom we really connect stays with us all our lives.
Yeah, I've been curious about that, whether kids today have the chance to meet people outside their immediate families, like Angel. But you do think that they have the opportunity to meet those people and they impact.
They do. I hope they do. And I think that stories that parents tell their children, even if it's just like, well, we used to walk 4 miles to school every day, or whatever, I think these stories make really big impressions on their children, and are very important for a sense of depth in the child's life.
In all of your work, you've written books of poetry as well. It does seem...
Started out writing poetry. Yeah.
It does seem that that sense of history is what you write from, and from all the stories that have been told you. How do you think parents and educators and aunts and uncles can make the family stories more interesting to their kids? Because, you know, sometimes kids' eyes glaze over. You start talking about the 4 miles you walked to school for the 100th time, and they...
But they also like to come to school and talk about that, joke
They
about
do?
that. Yeah.
So
my dad did the same thing, or something like that.
So you think those stories count anyway?
I do.
I heard you say once, even to talk about the sort of socks that you wore when you were a kid might matter
I think
to
so.
their telling those stories to the kids.
I really do, because the generation changes so much. When I think of back to the 1940s, our house was so barren in comparison to a house today. I think carrying some of that over in some way is really important.
So it might seem exotic to kids, this time frame
What
where you
was
lived.
commonplace to me,
To
or
them
to
is
one
very
generation,
different.
may be exotic, or at least stupid to another one, but it's going to be different, right? I think it's real important for them to know that.
And it's their stories, and great story material, because it certainly has served you well to be able to write from that sense of history and stories.
Yeah.
The stories that Angel told you. Would you like to read the original poem at Angels?
Yeah. This never satisfied me, which is one of the reasons why I tried it in a children's book.
Interesting.
And I thought maybe with the illustrations it would really come out so people could really know what it was like down at Angels. But anyway, this is called Angel's House, and it is for Angel. Beside the tracks and railroad roundhouse, Angel's house in South Dakota looks like Shravago's weathered dacha, or a lumber yard, with stacks of boards along the walk to the back door, and in the basement, a fire trap. There I got to use it.
You did.
A fire trap 3 inches deep in sawdust. Angel built the house for Mary when he first came to this country. He's sober now, but she never came back. In the middle of the cellar's gloom, Angel stands, pushing the heart of the pine board through the blade of the saw. It's almost 1. He snaps the saw's whine off. Sawdust settles on Angel's cap, shoulders, dark blue sleeves. The room is full of quiet hills of handmade chairs and stars pieced together and inlaid on tables. Angel shuffles to a shelf, turns on the radio, and lies down on the bench near the furnace. Hands behind his head, he rests his wild Bulgarian brown eye, while under thick eyebrows the milky one stares off and makes you wonder if Angel's looking here or there. Now it's 1, and from Carnegie Hall, Milton Cross announces to his radio audience in South Dakota, the NBC Texaco Opera, Angels kind of music. Like Woodburn and a saw's edge, it has the pitch he first heard in Bulgarian. I sometimes think that he was probably the only one in South Dakota who listened to NBC opera, but
That was part of his charm, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that you
it
could go to
was.
this place and hear the opera.
right, you know, in New York, your parents might take you to Carnegie Hall by the hand or whatever. And in South Dakota,
It didn't happen.
you went down the stairs to Angels to hear
hear
an
the
opera,
opera.
over the whine or under the whine of a buzzsaw or when he clicked it off.
It seems that you have taken that poem and expanded it into the picture book so that the magic feeling of going down to Angel pervades this picture book. It's really lovely. You've done a good job. Would you like to talk about the history of making it from a poem to a picture book? How
Yeah.
did that happen?
Oh, many, many revisions, and I'm not sure.
How many revisions? This many? A foot deep?
All right, I think this was the beginning story, and you can see the paper that it's written on, and haste and cross out, you know, strikeouts even there. So it's really hard to place an exact time after so many years, and it's, I mean, this was accepted for publication, I believe, in 1990. Came out in the fall of '94.
So it took 4 years?
Well, that was in 1990 when it was accepted. It was pretty well finished at that point. Just a few things added
I
here
see.
and there.
So this all
but before
happened before.
1990, all of this stuff happened. You know, trying to get at it, wrestling with it, not being able to really find the story, putting it aside, going on to some other project, coming back to it. You know, keeping.
You knew what you wanted. You wanted that sense of Angel in a
Right.
story, in a book.
Right. I knew what I wanted, and I was persistent enough to keep on trying to get it.
Because Angel was that important to you that you didn't let go.
Well, or whatever, German stubbornness.
German stubbornness, right. And you know, it's amazing to me how many people think that writing a picture book is easy. You just sit down one day and you write it.
Right, well, gee, it's only for kids, right? You can knock it off real fast.
No, but to do a picture book well, you have to put a whole world in 32 pages in a few sentences. This book does read like poetry. You've done a wonderful job. And it took you 4 years. By the time when you got the manuscript, so you felt it was good enough to submit, it took 4 years from that point to becoming a book.
Yeah, in New York it did,
Ah.
because they had to get the illustrator, and then she had to work on it. She lives in New Jersey,
And that's when Angel started to change a little bit because there were more voices coming into it
Exactly.
aside from yours.
Right.
But you're still happy with the finished product?
yeah, I am.
You know, I'm wondering, how did you start to write your stories? Or how did you write poetry?
Well, it was a fluke, to tell you the truth, and I'm certainly glad it happened. About in 1976, I've been a public school teacher for many, many years.
And you taught German?
Right, German, and then I,
Junior high?
right, and middle school and also elementary school. And in the 76s, the late 70s, there were budget crunches, and I thought, and they were cutting out things, non-essentials like foreign languages, right? So I thought, well, I better go back to the U and get another degree because I'm going to lose my job. And I've always liked to read, so I went back to the U, worked during the day, then always tried to find classes that fit into my schedule to get a degree in English. And my favorite classes were around 4:20, which means I could just make it over there in time to get to class, then come back after the class and have time in the evening, I'd be home by 8, have time in the evening to throw in a load, something exciting like that. So
Purely a matter of convenience.
Right, it was. So during my trying to accumulate the right kind of credits, I needed a literature course, and there was a poetry course at 4:20 on a Wednesday afternoon. I thought, oh, this is a perfect time, I'll take it.
Who cares about poetry, but
Right.
the class is at the right time.
Right. So I got into that class, and it was only on 2 poets, W.H. Auden and Dylan Thomas. And I'd never heard of either of them before, and I was at least 30-some years old by now. And we did Auden first because, as the professor said, everybody wants to do Dylan Thomas, and so we'll save the best for the last. Oh. And I didn't know either, and as a matter of fact, it made me nervous that everybody else wanted to do Dylan Thomas because that
they
meant
knew who
they
he was,
knew who he was,
you
which
didn't.
I was already then 4 steps behind, you know. So we started on W.H. Auden, and I simply fell in love with that man's work. It was just gorgeous, and I wanted to do something like that, and it looked pretty easy, you know. I mean, a poem doesn't even fill up a full page. There are wide margins all the way around.
Like picture books look easy.
Yeah, right. And who is doing anything on poetry? I mean, no competition. Well, it's good to go into these things very with ignorance, but so that's how I got started.
So
then,
from there on, that turned you into a poet, and you started to write your own stories?
Yeah, I started to take as many writing courses as I could to get the rest of my English degree.
And there was no stopping you at that point?
Well, yeah. I took as many writing courses as I could, and then I just continued writing. And
it's interesting to me, in all of your work, both your poetry and your picture books, there's a sense of your Germanic background, your ethnic background is what you write about. There's a lovely poem in your collection of poetry, but I won't go out in a boat. They Come Humming. Would you, well, if you could just read it, would you mind?
No,
because
my
to me
pleasure.
this is about all the characters from your past, all your background, all your history has come to you and into your poetry, has entered your work.
I've always, I should say, first tried to brush that away and not have anything to do with that side
But
of me,
your
you know.
poem
But
proves the point
proves
that
I
you
can't
cannot
do it.
brush them away. It's
Yeah.
important to tell those stories.
Okay. They Come Humming. What is the keyboard but a variation on a table, a trough in ivory and ebony, for all the hungry to come and be soothed by food's music? His head is bowed, like the pianist at an old Knabe. Grandfather Gottlieb at the table flexes his thick speckled fingers over the plate and begins to hum for the 15,633rd time. Komm, Herr Jesu, sei unser Gast, und segne, was du uns bescheret hast. Amen. Then he lifts fork and knife to the sausage and snaps the fried skin. Eating is a reminder of your link in the great chain of being, though grandfather, der Gottlieb, never knew life by that name. I do, and I sit alone. Remembering the power in rings and chains, I set no place at my table for old names, but still they come, down aisles and waist-high wheat fields towards my table, single file, out of groves of ashes, black-scarfed serfs with a ring in one ear, big-bellied German Russians, they come humming.
Thank you, Sharon.
Down at Angels, a wonderful story of intergenerational friendships. Thank you, Sharon Chiemlarz and Jane Green. Thanks to all of you for joining us on All About Kids. Please tune in again.
This has been a presentation of Hennepin County Library in conjunction with the Twin Cities Metropolitan Library Service Agency.